Hello, it's me again. I didn't forget about you guys and the book. It's just that I've run into a lot of few problems with this, and it's basically the publishers causing me problems and headaches because I'm having two different versions of the book because some words are illegal in some European countries, but not all, and the other words are, and it's just a mess. So I am going to, like I normally do, read a couple of chapters, or in this case, I'm gonna read a few. Now let me zoom out a little bit, just to show you that it's gonna be the front and back cover. I believe this is the US version. The UK version is white. It's not that much difference. The actual cover, there is not that much difference between the two different versions. It's the actual content that's inside of the book that's going to be mainly different. Um, if you're in America, you're not going to see the difference. If you're in Europe, you are going to get the European version. So, first of all, there is a disclaimer for this book. Couple. Everything in this book is fictional. Any relation or similarities to any person or persons, either living or dead, is purely accidental. Let me see if I can turn the music off. I don't think I can, but it would be nice. A little bit of ambient sound, because I like the fire in the background. That's why I choose this. It's more scenic. Okay. Let me make sure that real quick that this is still recording. Okay, yes it is. I'm recording everything using Oculus Mirror because the mic is in the headset. So yeah, that's the copyright disclaimer. Whoops, I keep moving. Where's the fire? There's the fire. Okay, so now we need. Hopefully, nope. Alright, so as we'll just do it like this then. The main point that I need to make, and I cannot stress enough, that you need to have an understanding of the stories thus far. Please read book 2, Her Intuition, because you may not understand what's going on in book 3 before you carry on. Normally, I do a little bit of recap because it fills the book up a little bit, but I'm not doing that this time. Basically, not to give the ending away of that, there's a portion of it where the main character Lynn tells Revan that she would tell her later what happened, and this book 3 is her retelling, her retelling of what happened. It's basically the alternate version of what happened. We in book 2, you see that Lynn is going to the airport with Michael, but you didn't know why. There was no mention of reason why they were going to the airport or what's going to happen. So book 3 is the basically the recap to fill in the gaps that were in 2. So they basically jigsaw puzzles, fitting them both together. Um, and then so the one chapter is the alternate chapters out of the past, basically the retelling, and the other chapters are the present time of what's carrying on. So it carries the story on, even though it's recapping what happened. You'll see what I mean. I'll do the introduction. Normally I do one chapter, just one chapter, but I may do two. So I do the introduction, chapter 2 and chapter 3, maybe. It decides how generous I feel. Alright, so thank you again to my wonderful patient editor, and for Andrew Hess, the designer. Say, you can have your name in big bold letters now. So yeah, absolutely indispensable. Thank you very much for editing the book. She's had to deal with the annoying problems. After this, I'm going back to how I was doing my books, because big time publishers are just not worth the hassle, or at least the one I'm going with. Okay, introduction. Did you hear about the woman who was married to the King of England? They say she was in an incestuous relationship with her brother. Well, surely you've heard of the Queen who wanted to cut off everyone's heads. I heard she was all heart. What's that? You haven't heard? Well, I'm sure you've heard about old Georgie, King of England, mad as any man ever did see. An entire country was led by a man who didn't even know what day it was, let alone his own name. Perhaps that one was past your time. It was only 1776 after all. So what do you remember? So do you remember the guy who was absolutely hated in the First World War? He was tough as nails but still united the country. He came to lead during the Second World War. They say he drank and smoked cigars non-stop. He was a tough old bastard though. How about that Martin guy? He was way ahead of his time, they say. My friend swears he met him. He kept going on about this dream he had. Like he was the only one ever to have a dream. What made him so special? They were Anne Boleyn, the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland, King George III, Winston Churchill, and last but no means least, Martin Luther King Jr. We all know that what we do or don't do, what we say or don't say, can all leave an imprint of us behind. We are not in control of our reputations. One's reputation is a accumulation of other people's opinions, while all you can do is just sit back and watch it happen. Women are no exception. Some women protest at slut shaming because they hope no one calls or thinks of them as a slut, out of mutual respect. However, a woman's inner slut is just as strong. Oh yes, there is such a thing. Every woman has one, whether they know it or not, or if they are willing to admit it. If she knows, then she will know how to shape your impression of her, if she wants to. She can appear innocent, weak, strong, dumb, intelligent. She can also appear flirtatious, if the situation wants it, or the complete opposite. All she would need to do is mold her personality to the situation like an actress. Even though one's reputation is created from the perspective of others, and we cannot directly control other people's minds, she can influence their perspective, thereby controlling her reputation. I mean, she knows you want to be her white knight, to rescue the damsel in distress, so why not play to that role? Having a strong protector does wonders. She knows to be seen as equal, she has to work twice as hard in this day and age to prove she is capable as any man. Reputations can be shaped and molded into a finely polished weapon, if done right, properly. Don't know how? She knows. X marks the spot. The term suits Norwich's International Airport in Norfolk, England remarkably well. Lynn has two main runways which form a giant X while flying overhead. This airport is nothing like its neighbors to the southwest, Heathrow and Gatwick. While the airport's name boasts international importance, it is actually a quaint little airport. Anyone living in America would assume it was just used for small local planes and those wishing to learn to fly. Most of the flights travel out to Amsterdam, then on towards America, even though it is capable of sending out flights straight to New York City and back. However, the former of the two is more common, as the planes that fly in and out are owned by KLM, the Royal Dutch Airlines, or that thing I can't pronounce in Dutch native tongue. With the terminal only being one level, the passengers are required to walk out to their planes, and vice versa, as if it was still the 1930s. It has its charm about it. It's like mixing the modern with the old. As the sun shined bright, one would think it was scorching hot outside. However, the English wind gusts from the channel kept it chilly summer's day. England, the only place where one could get a suntan and shiver at all the same time. One of the city's buses pulled up to the drop-off point. The driver opened the door and exited the bus to open the luggage doors on the bottom of the bus. Revan and Chris exited the bus amidst the crowd of people. Chris had Revan's carry-on situated on his back with the straps over his shoulder. Revan was sporting her signature black fedora hat. It was one of the few items she managed to keep hidden from her father and his woman friend. She also wore her thick black framed glasses, black lady slacks, and a low-cut navy blue and white striped tank top with royal blue throw in hand. There was nothing too cleanly and perfect for traveling. Chris retrieved Revan's luggage from the driver, set it down on the ground, and extended the handle, and began to roll it along behind them. "Are you going to come to tell me just how you run this holiday for me?" Revan asked Chris, as they started to walk to the terminal. "In a moment. Need to get you checked in," Chris responded, as he made his way to the check-in area with Revan following along behind him. He laid her paperwork on the desk, then took a step back, allowing Revan to step forward to answer questions for the check-in process. Chris lifted Revan's luggage onto the conveyor belt for it to be weighed and tagged by the airline staff member behind the counter. Voices echoed all throughout the terminal. Although there were some other people around that had also arrived on buses, there was an inescapable impression that the terminal was nearly empty. Once Revan received her boarding pass, she and Chris headed over to a mini British Home Stores (BHS) outlet. Next to it was Boots, selling books, magazines, and newspapers from all across the world. The main BHS store in the city center holds a sit-down restaurant and a small snack shop, which also supplies its counterpart in this airport. Chris ordered a breakfast roll, which was just 2 cooked sausages inside a Kaiser roll, and Revan ordered an Italian sub sandwich. They went to sit down at one of the few tables that were provided for the airport's passengers waiting to embark. "I know you love the rock group Him. I saw an online chance to enter a contest, and the question was really easy, so I entered," Chris started to explain. "Right, so this hasn't anything to do with me?" she inquired, sounding skeptical. "Do you know what she's talking about? Read book 2. "Well," Chris started to reply, shifting in his seat. "It did. I mean, I know I can't help you. You don't want any help, so I'm not. However, I knew you needed a break to get away. I entered never expecting to win. I mean, I'm sure thousands entered. However, I got lucky and I won you a ticket for Him with backstage pass." He held up the envelope containing the tickets and placed it on the table. "I'm keeping my word. I felt it wouldn't hurt you to go away for a short weekend or something. The prize was only the tickets, So how you get the plane tickets for me? She asked next. I I asked an old friend who I know is in New York City. They found a good hotel for you and promised to look after you, Chris mustered. So you asked your old crush for help? She stated sternly. What? How do you know? He remarked with a surprised tone. You have the same dumb look on your face you had for years following her around. The same look you have any time her name is brought up. You still love her, don't you? She questioned with an accusing look. No, I love you. It's been 4 years since I've seen her or heard from her. If anything, I wanted to know you were safe over there. I knew she went to New York, so I asked her to show you around. Just remember, you are my first, not her, she explained. Chris explained. So you did all of this for me, she replied. Look, I'm not trying to help you. I know you love your sisters. I did this because I know you love their music, and I know you always wanted to go see one of their performances. So I saw the chance, and I never expected anything from it. Such a long shot. I can see you are stressed out, and you needed a holiday more than anyone I know. So please believe me, I love you, and there is no ulterior motive here, other than to give you a holiday, so you can have some fun. Chris reached down and poured out a sealed envelope and handed it to Evan. Another to add to your collection when you get back. Another letter. I thought you can read it when you are on the plane, if you have time, find time. But you hate writing. You keep saying you are not good at it, Evan remarked, as she took the letter from him. I do, but I love you more than my hate of writing, so it should just show you how much you mean to me, and why I did this for you. He stood up as Revan's flight was being announced over the intercom. Because you love me, and I love you too. She hugged him tight and kissed him. Then she proceeded through the door, leading her to the outside, towards the plane. There wasn't any security to go through here. Since the flight was just headed to Amsterdam, it was considered an internal flight, at least until Brexit came into effect. That is. From there, the flight would head out to New York. Chris walked over to the observation deck, which more accurately was just a giant observation window. It allowed people to see out onto the airfield. One could see the plane stationed outside with the motorized ladders leading up to the plane's entry door. Revan headed straight out toward the ladder leading up to the plane. She wanted to look back, but tried to fight the urge. One of the many quotes Chris often recited came back to her mind. Never look back, keep looking forward, and obtain your goal. Looking back only distracts you. When she reached the bottom of the steps, she couldn't fight the urge anymore and looked back towards the terminal. She loves me, Chris mumbled under his breath. As he smiled and waved to Revan, he waited until Revan was up and out of sight before he pulled out his cell phone. He opened up Facebook and started a quick message to Courtney, Lynn's friend from New York. Chris had never actually got to speak to her in person, but only via Facebook. He had attempted to message Lynn, however, it was Courtney who answered initially, and she had been communicating for Lynn ever since. This bit, read book 2, and you'll see what actually happened. This is not entirely true. It's from Chris's perspective instead of what actually happened. Just following just like book 2 carried on. Like book 2 is actually lying to you. You need to read book 1 to find out why book 2 is a lie, and then you need to read book 2 to find out why this section is a lie. She's on the plane on time. It's taxiing to the runway now. It will be in JFK in 10 hours. Chris turned and looked around while waiting for a response about what he would be doing next. He didn't have to wait long, as he had only gotten about halfway to the terminal's exit when the green light on his phone started to flash. Understood. We're getting makeovers by Lynn's boss. I bet you won't even recognize her. Lynn will be touching down at 7:50 at NWI, which is the public code for Norwich Airport. Chris exited the terminal and waited for the next bus to arrive to take him home until his scheduled turn. A red Dodge pulled into a parking spot outside the Presbyterian Hospital in Queens, New York. Guess I'm doing the other chapter. So, as you can see, the first chapter, main chapter, is actually in the past. This has already happened. It just builds up to the point explaining how it came to book 2, and then book 3 is the present. Chapter 3 is the present. A red Dodge pulled into a parking spot outside the Presbyterian Hospital in Queens, New York. Lynn turned off the engine and grabbed her purse. She was wearing Hayden loose-fit boyfriend jeans with a black lace tank top under a denim jacket. The entire outfit came from a favorite store, Topshop. Lynn exited the car and locked it manually, using the key, rather than with the wireless function of the remote fob. There was a breeze with the air, but it was still a warm New York summer's day, with the temperatures over 80 Fahrenheit. Lynn rushed onto the sidewalk as the street traffic was very heavy. She opened her purse again as she began heading in the direction of the main entrance. She reassured herself that she did indeed have a phone with her. She retrieved her sunglasses before closing her purse again and placed the dark frame glasses onto her face. She noticed a rather anxious-looking man standing outside smoking a cigarette. He happened to be standing right next to the sign proudly stating the hospital had a smoke-free campus. It was just one of the many incredible things happening there. Lynn couldn't help smirking at the irony. When Lynn got closer, he dropped the cigarette, having only smoked half of it, and stamped it out with his foot. He turned to head back inside, but didn't see Lynn then, and knocked into her. "Sorry, my wife is in labor. He began with his voice trailing off. He stood about 6'1" tall, and wore jeans and a green shaggy jacket over a black t-shirt. Lynn glanced back up at the sign. "Indeed, incredible," she remarked and proceeded inside to the main reception desk. "Hey, my sister was brought here after a fire at the house she was visiting," Lynn asked politely. "Name?" the receptionist asked, with a tone that was monotonous and uncaring as anyone could ever imagine. "Her name is Revan. She's my sister," Lynn lied. Since the lady appeared so emotionless, Lynn believed she could have told her she was the first lady, but she would still just ask for her name. "When was she brought here?" the woman responded. "2 days ago. The fire EMS brought her here," Lynn answered flatly. She knew smiles were contagious, and apparently being an aircell was too. "Third floor, section 42B, was moved from the ICU yesterday. Down the hall, turn right, you will find the elevators. Have a nice day," the receptionist stated, with an automated quality to her voice. "Why don't you just quit if you don't like this job so much?" Lynn asked, before walking away. She couldn't help herself. "Because I like eating, and I have free health care from this health network for working here," she replied. "Kind of a cheap price for your soul," Lynn commented, as she dropped a 20 bill in the tip jar and headed down the hall toward the elevators. Leaving all thoughts of that woman behind, she once again set her focus on her objective. She found the turn to the right and eventually found the elevators. On the ride up, Lynn's phone started to vibrate. She successfully retrieved it from her purse as the elevator paused to allow more people inside. She read the text message and flipped her phone open to reply. "I'm here now. I haven't heard anything more about the trip. Talk soon." Lynn returned the phone to her purse just as the elevator doors opened on the 3rd floor. She exited into a mass of people busying around the floor, including nurses, doctors, and wandering patients. Unsure which way to turn, Lynn quickly hunted for a directional sign. Short-term patients were to the left, whereas wards 1 through 48 for long-term impatience were straight ahead. Can I help you? You look lost, honey. One of the nurses asked, startling Lynn. She was cute. She had unique red hair with a nice smile and stood about 5'7" tall. She wore light blue kitten themed scrubs and was looking directly at Lynn. Oh, what? Oh, yes, thanks. I'm looking for my sister, Revan. She was brought in here 2 days ago. Section 42B, the front lady said. Lynn responded. She noticed the nurse's name tag read Megan. Right down here, Megan pointed down the white hallway. She's still unconscious. She had several burns on her. You found her under some of the rubble. The blast of the fire was focused upward and out, not sideways. She was located in the basement, according to the EMS, Megan reported, as they made their way down the hall. Did they bring anyone else out? Lynn questioned. Not that I'm aware of, although they could have gone to the other hospitals. You know what she was doing there? Megan inquired. She was visiting. She's on holiday from England for the weekend. She was friends with a boy, Michael. That was his house. I'm friends with Courtney, Michael's sister, and Revan is my sister, Lynn explained, only slightly bending the truth towards the end. For some reason it's not. That's why it went off the main active screen. Well, she's still unconscious, as I said. You're welcome to sit with her. I have to warn you, don't be frightened by all the screens and monitors, okay? She's in here. Megan stopped, turned, and pointed into a private room. Heeding the nurse's warning, Lynn took a deep breath in and opened the door. The curtains were drawn closed, keeping the room dark. She could hear a rhythmic pumping sound coming from the IV monitor as it pumped steady amounts of saline and medicine into Revan from the two bags hanging on the IV stand. Is she in pain? Lynn questioned, with a concerned look on her face. She glanced at the EKG machine. Marching? I guess we need to correct that. Oh, 1 second. My alarm's going off. Yep, it's 5:45 a.m. in the morning. Another support machine's hooked up to Evan. No, we gave her 50 cc's of morphine 2 hours ago via her IV. If you want anything, just let one of us know or push the button. We're right outside the door, Megan said confidently, as she left the room and closed the door. Lynn slowly approached the right side of the bed and pulled one of the chairs closer to be able to sit by Revan's side. Well, I guess Chris picked well. You must be strong to have survived, Lynn muttered, as she reached out to grab her hand. However, she pulled back after noticing Revan's hand, and most of her arms were covered by a sort of sealed wrap to help the burns heal. If it's any consolation, I didn't want this for you. I'm glad Chris had found someone. I always knew he had to when I left. Lynn heard Megan's voice returning, followed by the familiar voice of her friend, Sergeant Wilkinson. Lynn grabbed her phone to send a quick text. He's here. You're clear to go in. She hit send just as the door opened. Wilkinson walked straight up to the bed and placed handcuffs on the only clear area of skin on Revan's unconscious right arm. What are you doing? Lynn protested. She is the only survivor of a multiple homicide. The signal that detonated the explosion came from her phone, he remarked, looking at Lynn sternly. Rubbish! She wouldn't blow herself up. What reason would she have? Besides, she isn't going anywhere. If you haven't noticed, she isn't exactly in a condition to flee. Megan left in a hurry, as she had as she had been standing by the door watching the confrontation. It is still being investigated. However, she is the lead suspect, he explained. It makes no sense. Do you have any actual evidence that she did it? She's a tourist. It was the very first time she visited the house. To commit homicide, you need to plan it out. It isn't something you do on the spur of the moment. Lynn looked down at Revan and back up to Wilkinson. Besides, she has an alibi. She was with Michael since she arrived in the country, and was at a hymn concert, and stayed with Michael the entire time. Well, sadly, Michael is dead. So there goes her alibi, Wilkinson interrupted. Do I have to help you with your investigation? Go check out the hotel she is staying at. Go to the concert hall. They have security cameras, I'm sure, and they will have her ticket stubbed. Anyway, you do not have enough of probable cause to place cuffs on an unconscious patient who is suffering from third-degree burns, who is not a flight risk. You are in violation, Wilkinson. You should really brush up on your criminal justice skills, Lynn taunted. Wilkinson was about to argue when a doctor burst into the room, followed by Megan. I don't know what this is about. Regardless, under the New York Health Code Act, you cannot place a burn victim or an unconscious person in cuffs unless you have a court order signed by a judge, the doctor reported. Wilkinson ignored the doctor completely and kept his eyes focused directly on Lynn. Where is she? Wilkinson demanded. Who? Lynn responded, keeping her eyes trained on him without shifting. My partner, Sarah. I last saw her at her apartment. She was going to see you and they found her car abandoned at the scene of the explosion, he elaborated. Oh, I see. You were at her apartment. I didn't know you two were serious, Lynn replied with a question of her own. You sure this is business and not personal? Just answer the question, damn it, Wilkinson pushed. I haven't seen Sarah since the night of the club, when you were getting schooled. Perhaps she went into the house trying to save the people inside and got caught up in the fire, Lynn offered. In the next moment, hospital security arrived. They were definitely not accustomed to escorting police out of the hospital, as they normally escorted them in. Remove the handcuffs, officer, then I'll be requiring your badge ID, the doctor ordered. He stared Wilkinson down as the cuffs were removed. Wilkinson glanced towards Lynn one more time, while the security placed a hand under his right arm to lead him out of the room. The doctor followed them, leaving Megan behind. I'm sorry you had to go through that. You okay? Megan asked gently. Yeah, I'm fine. It's no problem. Thanks, though, Lynn replied, as she sat back down at Revan's bedside. She snatched up her phone to send another text. He's gone. He's in love with you. She finished typing and hit send. Megan made sure everything was back to normal. Then she turned and left, softly closing the door behind her. Lynn focused her attention back on Revan, who continued to lie there, completely unaware of the events that just took place. Well, Revan, I said I would explain and tell you what happened. I guess now is as good a time as any. And that is the end of that chapter. So, as you can see, it leads into where Lynn starts to explain what happened before everything went to shit. So that's basically what's going on. The first chapter is so you can see how the initial start between them two went off. Because first chapter you see it getting on a plane, then the next chapter you hear she's unconscious. So it's you need to understand what happened from book 2. And if you haven't seen it before, this is my Oculus Rift home. I've changed the background to the new Smart City. It used to be a space, but I've changed it. But yeah, the back to the book. It is delayed publishing, so it's going to be coming out as soon as I can, maybe towards the end of the March. The publishers have all sorts of different rules and stupid regulations that they want me to follow and do, and I'm trying to comply with that. So as soon as I get the last 2 chapters done and my editor gets them done and I can send them off to the publisher, they will be the book will be out. The books normally have 18 chapters, but I was told to have only 10, but the last 2 chapters are going to be extremely long, so it's still going to be like 100 pages. So we'll get this done. Alright, thank you. Sorry for the delay again, and I'll check with you guys soon. Adios.